Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see behind me, leaves are starting to turn. The mornings are starting to get a little bit chillier, and there just happens to be just a little bit less daylight as the weeks progress. And that means one thing and one thing only: fall is knocking on our door right here, right now. And the fishing is about to be probably the best since it's been since spring, at least as far as smallmouth bass go. And this just happens to be my absolute favorite time to be out on Mille Lacs Lake chasing smallmouth bass. Which brings us to No More Secrets, September. And you guys know, we do this at the beginning of the month. That way you guys can get prepped, ready to go out, purchase all your stuff off Omnia that you guys need to buy to be able to get on these big fish. And there's always a ton of different stuff coming out, new tackle, new ways to fish them, especially with that forward-facing sonar. It really gives guys an idea of what baits work and what baits don't work. And it also gives us the opportunity to try new stuff with 100% confidence that we're giving the people what they want as far as new baits go and stuff like that out on the market today. September time, guys, I'm telling you guys right now, I'm already starting to see it. Ever since the very first cold snap of the morning, I'm starting to see more and more fish way out deep, starting to get there. About 2 weeks ago, I couldn't say that that was the same as it is now. I didn't see as many fish deep. They weren't quite as grouped up, and the fish were really scattered. You know, there's a lot of fish shallow, a lot of fish deep. Now this transition is gonna include a vast majority of your shallow fish starting to push deeper towards that 20 to 26 foot range. You know, that colder weather is definitely gonna start pushing that shallower class of fish a little bit deeper out into that 20 to 24 foot range. You know, all around, you know, big boulders or isolated boulder clusters. Now, one thing that I've noticed as the weather gets colder, you'll start to see more and more fish in that depth range, and you'll start to see more fish at once. You know, they start getting balled up a little bit more, and you might see quite a few more fish to the group, which is a good thing. That's how you know the weather's getting a little bit colder. These fish are starting to prep to go into wintering mode. So there's a lot of baits. As you guys can see behind me, I got a lot of rods on my deck. So let's get right into it, and we're gonna check these baits out and see what's up. Some of this stuff is some of the same stuff that I was using last year, and we got some new baits on the deck too as well that we're gonna run through. So I'm gonna start off with one of my favorite ways to fish them in the fall time, because I get a lot of bites on it. And quite frankly, I caught my PB on this bait last year. I caught a 6.75 smallmouth. If you guys have not checked out the video yet, guys, I'll link it up on my YouTube. You guys got to check this out. It was a pretty sweet deal. And I boat flipped that thing too. 6.75. It burped up a perch like freaking that big, if not a little bit bigger. And I got to share that moment with one of my good homies, Todd Wynn. So I'm gonna start with this bait. I had a problem throwing it for a minute on the pond because I didn't have a lot of confidence in it until the very first fish that I caught on it was a 5-pounder. So, man, the Chatterwagon, aka the Chatterbait, man. That's the jackhammer Chatterbait. White is my favorite color for throwing out on the pond. I don't know what color this jackhammer is called actually, or like the specific color that it's called, but I just call it white. So, you know, we got the white Chatterbait, Yamamoto Seiko on the back of it. It's a half ounce. Half ounce is basically like that one weight that you could target both shallow and a little bit deeper with. But if I was gonna fish over 15 feet, I would probably throw a 3/4 ounce. Half ounce is perfect. And one trick with the Chatterbait that I've found for both largemouth and smallmouth both is try not to burn this thing. That's why I really lean on the jackhammer. One way that I rate chatterbaits is how slow I can wind it while still getting vibration. And I think that the jackhammer, you can wind it at literally one of the slowest speeds possible and still get the vibration. And then I'm using a 7'4" Toxic Elite Chatterbait rod. And this is fully fiberglass, some of the best glass made on the market. You guys know I'm not with Toxic anymore, but this rod will probably be with me for a very long time because of how trustworthy it is. And just the bend and just the bend, the action of the rod, and the very ramped up sensitivity of it. That's the key. If you guys are looking to purchase a chatterbait rod and you're looking for a fiberglass rod, definitely spend the money on it. There's a ton of them on the market, but definitely don't cheap out on it. Spend the money on it. That's gonna get you a fiberglass rod with high quality fiberglass to give you good sensitivity and so that they don't break too. But this rod is definitely one of my favorite rods that I've ever used for chatterbaiting, and it's freaking tough too. As you guys know, I boat flipped that 6 3/4 smallmouth right over the side of the boat, and it was with this rod on 20-pound fluoro. So definitely one of my favorite baits to use. And I did just say I throw it on all fluorocarbon too, in case you guys didn't know. All 20-pound Seagar and Vizex paired with a Daiwa Tatula SV TW, and it's an 8-to-1. All right, so a rod that hasn't seen, a rod and bait actually, that hasn't seen much action since springtime is gonna be my jerkbait, man. And I have it out right now in the anticipation that the water is gonna get much colder. And as that water gets colder, what's gonna happen is that shallow population of fish that we've seen all spring and summer kind of hang out there, they are gonna make a push a little bit deeper, but not as deep as those mid-depth fish that hang around that 10 to 15 foot range. Now our shallower fish are gonna take the place of those, and those mid-depth range fish are gonna start to push deeper. So when I do deal with a ton of wind on the water, there's still gonna be, even in that 50 to 58 degree water temps, there's still gonna be shallow fish in certain places of the lake, especially the areas that are gonna carry a little bit more warmer water, or maybe the water temp didn't drop as fast as other parts of the lake. I'm gonna get into those mid-depth range, and that's when I'm gonna definitely chuck this Vision 110 +2 on them. I typically put this bait away after springtime in recent years, and I usually won't pick it up again until the next year because you catch them so good with these other baits. I didn't really bother to try it a ton. Now with forward-facing sonar, of course I can see my bait out in front of me. That changes the game big time, and it really allows you to isolate fish, test different baits on them that you wouldn't have tested before. One thing that really troubled me was being able to find the fish that would eat this bait. And so, like I said, with forward-facing sonar, it makes a big difference. Now, to me, as far as smallmouth go, you got a steady population of fish that live both shallow and deep all year round, no matter what, except for wintering time. And this is just a theory of mine, but in my theory is this, that your shallow fish that stay shallow throughout the whole entire year, they're still gonna stay shallow, but they're not gonna be as shallow as what they were before, like that 5 to 10 foot range. They're just gonna push out a little bit deeper into that 10 to 16 foot range. And I think that those are the fish that I really try to target with this jerkbait. I think that they're most oftentimes gonna be bait chasers, and that's when I'm really gonna lean on this Megabass Vision 110 +2. So this thing dives down to between 10 and 15 feet. I've used it quite a bit on isolated boulders / isolated boulder clusters, and this thing works awesome. It can really fire up the school and really get them to bite good. So this is a great way to catch them, especially when you're around smallmouth that really like chasing bait around. So one of my favorite ways to catch them is with the jerkbait, and it's pretty cool that we're able to see all the interaction with the fish from the cast all the way back to the front of the boat. It's pretty cool to be able to watch. So one of my favorite ways to use the forward-facing sonar is between this and like a minnow or a Neko style bait. So I have a lot of fun playing with that jerkbait. I'm throwing it on a 6'10" medium light rod. It's a very light rod. So I'm a shorter dude, I'm 5'8". I needed a shorter rod for jerkbaiting so I don't smack the gunnel on my boat. I always like to go really light. I always like to go light line, light rod, just to make sure that that bait's gonna stick really, really good. Mille Lacs doesn't have a lot of grass in it, so you don't have to worry about that fish diving into grass and you losing them because your rod's not heavy enough to pull them out. All right. Next, we got the tried and true. This has caught me a lot of bass this summer. Catches me a lot of bass in the fall time too. At the end of September, I'm probably gonna put this down. I probably won't use it quite as much, but at the beginning, so the first 2 weeks of September, I predict that this is gonna be a pretty good fish catcher for me. I'm definitely gonna be having this in my hand for the City Auto Glass tournament, and that is a drop shot, man. And right now, what I got on this is a little Mega Bass Hazardong shad, a little 3-incher, and I am running a medium light Daiwa Tatula drop shot rod paired with a Daiwa Kage, 10-pound test braid to an 8-pound test leader. You might even see me get down even into 6-pound test. But a lot of times, guys, even if I am fishing like this tournament coming up on Mille Lacs, I'm gonna run a lot of 8-pound test tackle just to see if I can get more bites. But I think that when you're fishing around all that zebra mussel and all the sharp stuff down there, your line is constantly rubbing all over rocks. I think that that's a good time to not get below 8-pound, just because there's gonna be nothing left once you get one nick in the line. So it's really important. As far as drop shot goes, guys, I'm gonna drop shot a ton of different baits. This Hazardong shad isn't the only one that I dropped. I obviously drop shot the Samatis shot. That's one of my favorite ones too, the Berkeley Max scent. So there's definitely gonna be a few different baits that are gonna be on this rod throughout the fall time. Got a 3/16 ounce weight on it because I've been fishing just a little bit shallower, like mid-depth ranges. But once I get down into, let's say, 15 feet plus, that's when you're gonna see me throwing anywhere from a 3/16 all the way up to a 3/8 ounce weight. So I definitely lean on a heavier weight the deeper that I go, but when you're up shallower, up into that 12 foot and under, that's when I really lean on like an 1/8 to 3/16 ounce weight. And you're gonna get snagged a lot less. If you guys want everything that you guys need to know on drop shotting, I can put that video down below. I got a pretty good video that solely concentrates everything on drop shotting smallmouth bass. All right, so next I have a Neko rig or a Neko rig, and this has been an absolute fish catcher for me. Now, I haven't got to play with it a bunch in the fall time, but as far as this July and August goes, this was definitely a fish catcher for me out on Mille Lacs. And I really do think that it's not gonna change much, even with the colder weather coming in. When we get into fall time, like when the water starts dropping that 10 degrees that I'm really looking forward to. But when I start seeing that initial temp swing for September, that's when I'm really gonna try this out a lot more. But this is a Neko rig. You know, I'm using this with a 2 VMC Neko hook. I got a little band on it. It's a straight-tailed worm. I think it might be like a 4.5, maybe 5-inch worm. I got the Z-Man Neko weight on the end of it. I'm not gonna pull it out, but basically what it does is it kind of just looks like a Ned mushroom head. And then I put a band on it, and then I got that number 2 hook on there, and that's how I got it rigged up. This bait is a very awesome forward-facing sonar bait, and you can really game with the fish and see how they interact with it. Now, one thing that I really like about this bait is the fact that I can keep it in front of the fish's face longer, but it's not a drop shot, so there's no tag end on the bottom. So I can keep this, you know, I cast this out into 17, 18 feet, and I need it to suspend in like, you know, 5, 6 feet up off the bottom and keep it right in that fish's face. This is like one of the perfect ways to do it because of the action of the Neko rig. When you pull it backwards and you let go of it, it wants to go back into its original place. And that's what is so unique about it compared to like a regular wacky Senko. And with this rig right here, I can just keep it in front of them that much longer. It's really good for when the minnow doesn't work as good. Like if you're pinging a minnow and they just seem to be like acting like they've seen it a lot, or they're acting really weird around it, definitely change it up and try throwing one of these worms on them, and they might really come unglued because it just might have the action that they're looking for at the time. I've had times this summer where they really wanted this Neko worm, and I've had times this summer where they really want the Jig Minnow. So you really do have to play around with it and know that every fish is different. All right, guys, next we have a brand new product from Samatis Baits. It doesn't look so brand new because I've been using the hell out of this thing for both large and smallmouth bass. But for smallmouth, I am exceptionally excited to use it. I caught a few this spring with this thing, but let's talk about it a little bit. So this is the Samatis Baits Finesse Football Jig. I got it paired with a little hollow tip worm on the back of it. I've been playing around a little bit with just, you know, like a Ned rig style trailer, creature bait style trailer with different with little legs on it, whatever. One thing with this style trailer right here is I feel like it's just something that they don't see very much, you know? My buddy Jamie lives out in Maine. He's the owner of Samatis baits. He was telling me to put the straight tail hollow tip worm on the back of it and try it. Guys, I can tell you guys what, they blast it and eat this thing quite a bit. So if you kind of look at it, it kind of reminds me of the skirted Ned rigs that you see. Like just the skirted Ned heads that you see. That's basically essentially what it is. We got it ran with a #1 BKK hook, which is uber sharp, super sharp, and it's got a finesse hook on it. So if you guys look, that is a finesse hook, thin wire hook. So one thing that I like to do is I do downsize my line just a little bit, as well as downsize my rod. So this is actually a medium rod. It's a 7'4" medium rod, and I'm using 17-pound fluorocarbon on it. And when I set the hook, guys, I am basically, when I'm setting the hook, I'm basically just turning over and straight setting it or sweeping setting it, and not really snap setting it super hard. I just don't want that hook to bend out, and I think that that's what happens. You know, you start putting braid or too heavy line on this thing, you're gonna bend every single one of these hooks out. The fish do stay pinned really good. This color is called Tomcat. It's all black. You can put any colored trailer on it, and we also got a couple other colors too. That's a 1/2 ounce head, and that's gonna be the head that I choose a lot of times. It's gonna be 1/2 ounce or 3/8 ounce. This is tungsten head. So it is tungsten, so you get more of a dense profile. And you know, I just think it gets a few more bites than the actual football jig, like a regular size football jig. Typically, when in doubt, net it out. And when we can't net it out, guys, one bottom contact bait that they eat, and they'll forever eat out on the pond, is gonna be the tube. You know, so I got just a regular Howie's yellow tube on there. And then what I do, guys, and it's probably not the right thing to do, but I get a lot of bites on it this way, is I actually just take an Outcast Tackle Perfect Ned, and I shove the head in just like so, and so I just get this tube presentation. Now I get this question quite a bit. I get it from high school anglers specifically, especially the ones that are going out to fish tournaments on Mille Lacs. When do I fish a tube versus a Ned rig? And the answer is super, super, super easy. You fish the tube when they won't bite a Ned rig. And one of the biggest things about the tube is gonna be the way that it falls. This odd shape just makes this thing dance all the way down to them. And obviously the lighter the weight that you have on this, the more freely it falls and the more swinging action you get. So just remember that. But I just usually stick to this little guy right here all year round. I'm running on a 7-foot medium rod. So this rod is ultra sensitive. I think that's important for when you need a tube, or from when you're fishing the tube. A lot of times what happens is the fish like peck or snap at it just a little bit, and it's like a pop when you get the bite. It's just a thud. And you really want to be able to hear that, and you really want to be able to feel that. So use a sensitive rod when you're fishing a tube. That's going to make a lot of the difference. So like I said, whenever they're not eating the Ned, you pick up that tube and it can be money. All right, guys. So one of my favorite combos that I've used this year for both smallmouth and largemouth, and I've been playing around with it a lot, more than what I'm proud of, is the Jig Minnow combo. So I'm gonna show you guys right here. This is an Outcast Tackle Goldeneye. I got it paired with the Z-Man Jerk Shads. That's the bait that Gussie won the classic on, and I can tell you guys what, this is an awesome bait. So because the Z-Man is that Elastec material, part of that Elastec is it wants to put itself back to true form. So you gotta wear out the material enough to where its true form just fits right around that hook keeper. So that's how I have it rigged. This is a 1/4 ounce, and oftentimes what I do, guys, is I go anywhere from a 1/4 all the way over to like 3/8 even. 3/8 for that deeper water, you know, 1/4 ounce for kind of that mid-range, you know, 12 to 18 feet, and then anything under that, it's between 1/8 and 3/16. So maybe having 2 of these rigged on the boat, one with an 1/8 or a 3/16 and one with a 1/4 and a 3/8, is gonna cover you on all ends of the spectrum, both shallow and deep. Me personally, guys, I really think that you need like a 6'10". 6'10", anywhere between 6'10" and 7-foot rod is probably going to be perfect for this technique. I'll know after next year. I'm going to get a different rod for this. I definitely think that a shorter rod is definitely going to be more natural feeling in your hands versus having something longer to do this specific technique. And one thing that I can say with the Jig Minnow, if you guys don't watch like the Elite Series or any of the pro circuits, one thing that I've noticed a lot of guys doing, and that I started doing too as well, is turning it over to the side and moving it, shaking it like this versus shaking it like this. When I shake it like this, the bait just wants to climb, 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 climb. When you move it horizontally, the bait just kind of wants to stay in that same depth that you're keeping it at, or the target depth that you want it to stay at. So you let that bait fall, watch it, watch it, watch it. And as soon as it gets to the area that you want it on, you kind of stop it, turn your rod over to the side like this, and kind of just shake it back, and that'll keep it at that depth for a heck of a lot longer than it would be if you were to go up and down like that. All right, last but not least, we got the A-rig, guys, and I got a brand spanking new one on here, right here. We got the Hog Farmers Minnesota A-rig. So basically, you know, looks like so. I got rubber bands around it. And as far as storing tips go, there's another one for you. This one, as you guys can see, the blades need to get worked on a little bit. We're gonna go to the store and get some polish. I keep silver and gold blades around. You never know what the scenario is gonna call for, but in certain circumstances, it's definitely gonna matter what color blades you have on, but most it's not going to. I got a 3/8 ounce Outcast Tackle Goldeneye on the back of it. This one, same deal. Same exact deal. You know, Strike King Rage Tail on the back of it, and then we got our Goldeneye. So gold and silver are my favorite colors. They're the only ones that I run. And that's basically it, guys. That's like all the setups. All right, guys, first and foremost, I just want to thank everybody who's tuned in to all the videos throughout the summertime. I really appreciate it, man. I never would have thought in a million years that I would have anybody watching my videos, and somehow I got lucky enough to get blessed with 1,500 people watching them now, and it's a pretty cool deal for me. So I appreciate it. As far as smallmouth fishing goes, out on the pond, it's been a minute since I've been out there, about a week now. So I'm gonna be going out there next week. We got the City Auto Glass tournament coming up, which is my favorite tournament to fish. We still got quite a bit of the season left to get out and get after it and to give you guys some awesome content. So again, all this stuff, all the gear, all the reels, the line and everything, that'll all be in the links below. You guys can purchase it through Omnia. Until next time, guys, you know where you'll find me, on the water. It has to carry enough micro life so that the bait fish want to be there. Oh, there's one.